used by this organization, I believe, when you conducted tours of the facilities. Also, 2x2s have been used by the Board of Supervisors in the past. So it's an instructive way, and Mr. Lau with Davenport had indicated that this would be a good way because they have used it with their organizations that they represent to discuss things dealing with the intricacies of financing. Ultimately, everything is going to be your decision as a board and the Board of Supervisors as a board taking some kind of an action at which it'll be a public meeting where there will be the opportunities to have people participate in that discussion and also have people air their grievances or concerns or show their support. So I think that's important to note that. But the March 15th is what I'm proposing. If that doesn't work, then we'd have to come up with another day. But like I said, there is some limitations to the Board of Supervisors schedules because they are dealing with budgets. And so, I'll leave that to you guys what you want to do. Budget calendar. So Ms. Hahn and I have talked, and we are going to start the process of doing the work internally on the budget. Then what we would do is come to you all in some kind of a work session type format. I would think that this could be done in where you could review it all in a day or two meeting, and then you could vote on it. We're not under the same restrictions, obviously, that the Board of Supervisors is under in terms of having to set things by a certain time frame, the tax rates and things like that. So, we do have some more flexibility. I would hope that maybe we could do some things in April and set aside that time frame to kind of go through a lot of this. So I'm not asking for any direction or any, just putting it on your calendar, if you will.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Mellon?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Mr. Miller, just for the work session, for any materials, can we make sure we get them a little prior to the meeting so we can look through them?
Absolutely. It'll be the information that you received at those 2x2 meetings.
Okay, thank you.
There's nothing else to add.
Anything else?
I have some questions.
Okay.
Okay, so you had mentioned at Perkins Corner two different issues. So you mentioned operator personnel causing concerns, but also concerns about the overflow and addressing the equipment at that location. So can you expand on that a little bit? Is it the operators or is it the equipment failing?
I think it would be fair to classify it as both. What was happening is that we believe that the operations wise, they were not wasting their solids. They were not getting rid of the bad waste, if you will, the bad solids. And one factor was that they were recycling, if you will, waste and water, and they were pumping that out. And so they were never really emptying what are known as your tanks, your surge tank, and they were always at a high level. So it'd be like at a bathtub, adding water constantly to a bathtub. Maybe it drains out a little bit, but it always starts at, say, 6 inches. You're not down, and then all of a sudden you have a surge, it's going to overflow, or it's going to be potentially an overflow. And through Bowden's work, in about a day and a half, they were able to figure out that operationally they were making some errors where they weren't starting the process of wasting early. And so therefore it always kept it at a high level. So that was one of the reasons. And that's where they then indicated that they needed to haul out waste, the bad waste, because that way it could drop it. They also found that what are known as the clarifier tanks, which are basically big vats that have where the waste kind of comes through, there was an accumulation of grit and stone and rags, and I mean, I could get very detailed, but that were in the bottom of those that were causing those to not operate effectively. And so these are things that have just built up, and I don't believe, I mean, I will say this with certainty that the operators were not, it was not a deliberate or an intentional decision that they were making. I think they inadvertently thought they were doing the right thing, but they were always kind of like caught in a crisis. They were always kind of caught in a, oh my gosh, we're getting overflowed. We're going to get an overflow. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We need to respond to this immediately. And it wasn't allowing them to get ahead of the situation. So what we did is we pulled those personnel out and we brought in Bowdoin to run the plants for basically all last week. And they were able to identify the problem. And it's kind of one of those things where I think, the operator just wasn't making the right choices. And I think the equipment side of it, it's an older plant. It has a lot of issues. And those are things that I don't know the reason for why things from a capital standpoint maybe weren't invested back into that plant. I think the first thing would be, this has been on the list of being decommissioned for like 20 years. DEQ has said to us, oh, well, you guys have been talking about decommissioning that Perkins Corner. And I don't know if maybe unintentionally there was a desire to put a lot of money into the plant. It just, it was kind of like, well, we're going to decommission this. So let's not make that capital investment. And I think that's what may be contributing to some of the issues.
So I think what's really important, and this is why I wanted you to clarify that, is because the operators are doing their job correctly. It's just the systems are not operating at the way that they should operate. And so they're sort of in crisis mode. So that's what I'm hearing now. I just want to make sure, because at what point do we say maybe the operators are not, or who is accountable for it, right? So we have failing systems, we have operators that may not know how to work them, but we do have this contractor that's probably getting paid a lot of money. So at what point do we hold them accountable for this? Furthermore, and you can just think about that. Furthermore, I'm sure this is outside of normal budget. So how much does it cost? Do we know how much it costs? I'm sure it probably costs a lot. And I think that's important for the public to know as well. You had mentioned in your management report that you think that we should consider a long-term management within Bowdoin. I
didn't say in Bowdoin. I said that you should consider a long-term contract with a contractor to manage your wastewater plant.
Okay. I'm sorry.
And it would be under the auspices of a request for proposal. So it would be considered as professional services.
Yeah, belay that, because that was wrong. But a long-term management. And here's something that I have a question about, and that is, we know that the pay is not attractive to get a wastewater manager here, which is the reason why we can't get one here. Wouldn't it make more sense to pay somebody more money, get a really good manager here to oversee this organization versus paying a contractor, which I'm sure is a lot of money? To me, it would be more appropriate to consider that. And I just throw out that we have a contractor, and we've had a contractor for the last, I think, 8 months. So it's not like they just came on last week.
Well, if you're asking me a question, I can provide you an answer. I believe that what I have explained in the past is that the Bowdoin contract has been gradually ramped up. I think you received an update on that. We gradually ramped them up over time because we were beginning to feel that the existing personnel were in need of a greater amount of training than we had time to do. And so obviously we really accelerated their role back in January when we had the issue that happened at Dahlgren. These are things that their contract did not involve them. Their initial contract was to come in and do reports utilizing their class 1 status, their class 1 operator status, to give you a report every 2 weeks that was then, which is required of DEQ. And that's all that they did. They were then, because at the time, I believe that Mr. Weekly was leaving, and Mr. Weekly had all confidence that the organization would be able to get a wastewater manager with a Class 1 license. Well, the process has been since March, so we've not had the ability to do that. And so what happened is we then ramped up beginning probably in November on a technical basis, the services that Imboden provided. Then what we did is we started having them more interactive with our operators, our lead operators. And then the situation in January happened at Dahlgren. And then they have been more involved in Perkins Corner. As things happen, they have assumed more authority because that was what I gave them. And yes, I do believe that a contract would be the best thing. Now, you could look at it two ways. You could have a contract that they take over and they handle all the personnel and it's their personnel. Or you could have a contract that's managed by them, but yet it's our personnel. And we've assigned them to work under Imboden. So there's different ways to do that. And it's certainly not something that's set in stone. It would be something that we would do an RFP. We'd come back to you all with, the normal procurement process that we have. And you would make a decision on somebody. You'd probably interview some firms and do it like that. I do think that what, and this is a policy decision, but the idea of selling your system, that's a policy decision that this board would have to make. And the Board of Supervisors, I think, would have to make. But I do say that if I had any input, I would suggest that that's a decision that might be somewhat careless because of your status as a growth community. And you would lose your control over the delivery of water and sewer services to future development. And also, I don't know how much level of input citizens would have in a privatized system with concerns about rates. So that's, I think, just something but that's a policy question. And those are things that are above my pay grade.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Ms. Cleveland, one thing that came to light in these teleconferences with VDH, DEQ, us and Bowden regarding the Dahlgren, a Class 1 operator, wastewater operator, is finding available candidates is a industry-wide problem. The state is aware of it. It's like so many other things. We don't have people going into these fields and getting their certifications and working their way up. Just like plumbers and electricians and auto mechanics and a lot of these trade jobs, a Class 1 operator is becoming very difficult to find. So I think alternative options are going to have to be researched, unless we can convince a bunch of young people to go to get their training as Class 1 operators.
I'm aware of that, and I actually agree. And I'm not debating the need to have a contractor. I'm just stating the fact that we do have a contractor right now and things aren't going so well. Furthermore, we're probably paying a lot of money for it.
Okay. Anything else? Moving on to information items.
I move that the King George Service Authority Board of Directors convene in closed meeting pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A5 and A6 to discuss raw water requirements related to a prospective business or industry where there is no previous announcement of a business or industry locating or expanding in the community, and discussion or consideration of the investment of public funds where competition or bargaining is involved, where if made public initially, the financial interests of the governmental unit would be adversely affected. I invite the interim general manager, county attorney, county engineer, and engineering consultant because they are deemed necessary and or their presence will reasonably aid the board in its consideration of the topics to be discussed pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3712F.
Motion has been made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any objections? Motion carries. We're in closed session.
I move that the King George County Service Authority Board of Directors return to public meeting and certify by vote that only public business matters lawfully exempted from open public meeting requirements by Virginia law, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered during the closed meeting.
Second.
Motion's been made and second. Need each member to so certify.
So certify.
So certify.
So certify.
So certify.
James Morris, I so certify. We're back in open session. Okay, motion to adjourn.
Did you?
Chairman, yeah, can I just make a comment real quick? So the proposed meeting for the joint Board of Supervisors and King George County Service Authority for March 15th, that's actually the King George County Schools spring break, and I am not going to be able to make that meeting.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, I know that that's something on my county administrator's report to ask the Board of Supervisors what's a good time, so we can convey that to them, and then we can try to come up with an alternative, because that is a good point that Ms. Cleveland has. I'm sure that there's other folks that may not want to meet that week, so I understand it. The board has a meeting on the 15th, and I know, so, that's set, but we could try to come up with an alternative.
well, yeah, why don't we do that?
Okay.
So then I guess we're going to adjourn to March 15th, 2022 at 5:30 PM in the boardroom.
Second.
Motion's been made and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any objections? Chair votes aye. We are adjourned until March 15, 2022, 5:30 PM here in the boardroom.